no clue what I'm doing. And they were like, you're gonna figure it out. You just have that kind of personality. And that's what got me into that. So I had started my own not-for-profit production company focused on theater and film. And that propelled me to start a short film festival. And I started, and that was a long time ago, but I started getting sponsorships immediately with different brands like HBO and Remy Martin. And then I did work in film for a time, but I missed so much the live event. I missed people and that interaction. Sitting around in an editing suite was not exciting. And so that was when I stumbled upon the event world. And the thing I loved was that it took all these different art forms that I liked and put it all together so that I could go into a live stage performance, followed by some video, followed by live music, DJ sets, and more. And then that is what got me cranking in this.
I like that. Who here's felt the magic of live music? Anybody? Yeah, it's infectious, and I think it's what we're all surrounded here. So surrounded here with, for, and by. So tell me a bit about your experience in kind of the agency world and the many different hats that you wore in advance. You mentioned some large activations that you had worked on. Give us some of your tentpole moments in advance of coming to Refinery29.
Yeah, so it was actually in the festival world that I first really started working with brands in that interaction and activation world and bringing them to life. And that, look, there's part of it that's the client service, but then there's also that part of getting into what's driving them, what is their ethos, what are they passionate about, finding many brands that are saying, going, hey, we're actually really focused on better lives for women, or we're really looking to propel technology within our structure, even though that's not necessarily our primary. It was getting into what they were working on and becoming part of their team. So I never felt like that they were just outside and a client, that this was all just about customer service. This was bringing this to life for them. And especially at times, experiential marketing, the budgets can be challenging, and usually they're the first to get cut when there are slashes, and yet when things are great, they're ample and people put so much love into them, and they can be such a success and we get so much out of them. So it was through doing sponsorship activations that I found myself flipping over into the agency world. And one of the first big clients that I got to work with was Coca-Cola. And they've great design attributes, really good people. Surprisingly, for a large company, you would think, oh, decision making is going to be rough and long and winded. And they knew how to be nimble, which was great. And they were willing and ready to take some bold moves. So we did a couple of pop-up stores right at a time when it was still a little bit fresh and exciting. And they were also willing to go to markets that weren't seeing that kind of drive. Like, you know, pop-up stores in New York City have now become like a dime a dozen. You bring something like that to Boston and it felt fresh. And you just saw the community come out and engage in a whole nother way. So that was the agency flip, and it still felt like, you know, you're an extension of that brand partner.
Yeah, that's great. I like that you've had the opportunity to play all the different roles. You've worn all of the hats. You bring empathy to each of the partners that you have to be plugged into to create a successful event or activation. I think that's likely what they saw in you by bringing you in to head what they're doing now. And then talk to me a bit about 29 Rooms. It's fascinating what you guys have done. I love that you're able to curate such a special one-off experience for this multitude of brands. Talk to me about what goes into that and what we might not see from the outside. Give us some, widen the kimono a bit here and tell us about the gristly behind the scenes of putting that together.
Sure. So, again, I think one of the things that's been great was taking the fact of working at festivals, working at agencies with all these different brands in a variety of different sectors. That definitely paved a way for what I think is going on at 29 Rooms. So just a little backstory on that. Refinery is a media and content company focused on all of the issues, trends, information for young women all over the country, and now expanding into other parts of the world. And they wanted to celebrate their 10-year anniversary in a whole new kind of way. So not just a cocktail party, really doing something a little bit daring.
And when was the 10-year anniversary?
So this was 3 years ago. And so I wasn't with Refinery, and I love hearing about and working with the team that's part of the Refinery lore. And they said that there were thousands of Post-it notes that went into this. I work all the time with Pierre Gallardi, who is one of the founders and the chief creative director. And she said that they went through just thousands and thousands of ideas, and they landed on this idea of what if we could find a space where we could bring to life, physicalize in artistic ways all the different issues, people, voices, trends, things that were going on. So whereas at one point Refinery was very focused on beauty and fashion and style, it really now had encompassed politics, money, sex, all kinds of things that make up everything about what it is to be a woman. And that's when they came upon that idea. I don't know if it came out of desperation or budget or craziness, but it definitely, they had a choice of going into an empty warehouse. And a couple years ago, probably an empty warehouse would be relatively kind of cheap in some parts of Brooklyn. A little bit different kind of situation now. Anybody familiar with that? Or going through it in other major cities. But it was taking that empty warehouse and bringing it to life. So 29 different rooms focused on that. And then finding other brand partners who we weren't necessarily going to turn to and say, okay, you're going to get 15 by 15 space, and as part of your package, you will have this lighting rig, and etc. Instead, it was saying, talk to us about what you are working on right now. Tell us about an initiative that is, meaningful to you. And we would take our team, our design team, creative team, production, and we would partner with them, come back to them with some ideas. And renderings and more, and say, so this is what we kind of have the idea to come to life. And we hope that we're listening well enough that everything that we're doing, it looks great and keeps us going through that path. But it was to get away from the sense of just doing logo placement or just giving an activation space. It was really about bringing things to life. So it was pretty bold and scary. And a giant risk financially, emotionally, physically on a team who hadn't necessarily had a large-scale event production experience. And they didn't even know if anybody was going to show up, and they kept it free, and they opened up the doors, and there were lines going down the block. So I was brought in this past February and asked, how can we make this a better user experience? So how can we keep it for people? We had people waiting in line for 7 hours to get in. And that sucks if you're waiting, if you stayed out and camped out overnight and it's 11 o'clock in the morning and you're like, we have to cut off the line right now because you're not gonna get in. So nobody wants to do that. So that's where we came up with new ticketing platforms. And then also just, I mean, probably a lot of people have experienced it here. We've all gone through a huge change in using non-traditional event venues like a warehouse. So there was a lot of love that went into getting this year's building up to code. It was a 1930s typewriter factory. So my electrical, I don't even want to know how old some of that electrical was. But that's where we're bringing in some pros to actually help us out to get it up to code and make that happen and be safe across the board.
So they planned an innovative concept. It got a little bigger a little sooner than they thought, and they had to bring in the pro. So here you are. So you've come in. When is your activation? It's nowish, right?
So yeah. So we let's say this, that everybody, before I started at Refinery, there was the 29 rooms buzz. They've been doing before I even got there, they've been doing amazing things and trying to push the envelope and push themselves. And I think that was something I related to, and that's what a lot of people I love in this industry do. They like to push themselves into like figuring out a new challenge, figuring out how to do something that maybe mashes up other things that have been brought together. And you know, New York was the first time that we rolled out doing ticket sales, but we wanted to keep it affordable. That's who our audience is. And want to be good and within that marketplace, but upping some of the production values a little bit too. Got into whole other realms on rigging this year that the company hasn't done before, and that's been really exciting and just pushed our design into whole nother layers. But as we're going along this year, it was, I mean, so I started in February, and 29 Rooms in New York happens in September. And, you know, knowing, okay, we want to make some improvements, want to get some things, we're going to get some systems down. And then we're just seeing this momentum, and I think maybe it was May that we were like, what if we did a pop-up version in Los Angeles? You know, maybe like 12 rooms or something. We're like, could you do that while you're simultaneously also doing the giant behemoth version? It was like, yeah, we could totally do that. We could totally do that. And then it was like, well, a month later, it's like, well, what if we did like the whole thing? What if we did all 29 rooms in Los Angeles?
Just like, oh, sure, can we do this?
Yeah. And then it turned into like, well, what if we actually possibly see how ticket sales go there and just extend? We didn't make the decision to really go full 29 rooms, whole hog, if you know. Yeah, I'm from Ohio originally, so saying something like whole hog would definitely happen there. We didn't really decide all of that until August. And that happened in December. So it's larger than a football field, probably about 70 feet in the air. We did have a whole, has anybody had that experience of like, you have a venue, you're like, you've spec'd it out, about to sign the paperwork, and then you find out like, oh yeah, it won't be able to work like that. Somebody said, you know, we didn't change something. So that's when we pivoted. We were like, okay, we're going into a tent. And part of what had made 29 Rooms, you know, identity, we thought was this warehouse. And we're like, you know what, we're gonna try something. It's not gonna be, we're not looking for your off-the-shelf tent. We want to find something completely, you know, a little bit different, a little edgy, and then we're gonna wanna play around with some design on it, because that's a big hallmark for us. And I mean, and this is just all happening in real time as New York is going on. And again, we're not outsourcing to a production agency. We're all doing this internally as a wonderful, happy family in our event team. And there were definitely some nights where it was like, can we do this? And we just leaned in and committed. And so LA is happening right now. I just actually came in from LA just a night or two ago, and it's going to go on this week. And there's no wood here, but things are going well. Yeah, I have a great team.
Somebody knock on some wood for us.
Thank you.
That's great. So I know you've been relatively new at Refinery29, but it's so fascinating to see the landscape shift. I mean, we saw print publications then and now going out of business, the rise of digital. You see all of these shifts in the culture landscape around media. Talk to me about the migration from fashion editorial to event production agency. That's quite a migration, and obviously it has to do with where the revenue bases are and finding deeper ways to massage the clients out of the dollars out of the clients, or the dollars out of the sponsors. So it's so fascinating that you've literally wrapped your organization around their needs, even better than they might be able to know and understand them, and then deliver it to your audience. Talk to me about how that shift has happened, and then where does this bode for the future with, you know, with how you guys are heading?
Oh, there's a lot there. But, you know, at essence, Refinery29 is a brand, and we feel like we have a very strong identity and voice to that. And I think a lot of places, so whether you are a media company or whether you are a product or a service, that the public is understanding and identifying with a brand. Like, I think to myself of, you know, there's a certain kind of cell phone that I carry, and it aligns with like a computer, and like there's a certain like I sort of identify with that. I don't necessarily wear that with like a branding on me, but I have a love maybe for that particular company, and I have a value in that. And how is that bringing, how is that brand being brought to life along with the things that it stands for? And that doesn't necessarily mean like, well, we want to make our shareholders happy. No, it can be about design or quality or missions or serving a particular audience. And I think that that is a huge shift, that this other wonderful thing that's happened with technology and the socialization, the digitalization has enabled a whole other metrics on the ROI for us to justify why experiential marketing is incredibly valued. There's so much more that is tangible from what comes off when people come into an experience than, you know, what I see on a billboard. I will say this, like, very few billboards impress me, and very few billboards, I can't actually even think of a billboard has ever propelled me to buy something or to go to something. But I absolutely can think of a person in my life going, you have to go to this because it was amazing, or you have to try this because word of mouth, and word of mouth, one of the best ways to affect that is in experiential marketing. So I think that we just happen to be moving in that trend, or maybe in the collective unconscious, we were building in that right time, right moment. One of the things I do love so much that I think that we're doing in a really good way, and yet at the same time, it's always gonna feel like a nail biter, but it is that leap of faith moment with a brand to say, like, come with us on this journey within the 29 Rooms. And not even just at 29 Rooms, other brand partnerships that we've had where we're really saying, we're bringing our audience to life. We know what works and serves well with our audience, and at times that can be fickle, but we want to be a partner with you. And if you take this leap of faith with us, it can, we can create something that can propel conversation, and another way of brand love. And I think a lot of people are seeing that across the board.
Sure. And are you finding that the ancillary impacts and the checks from the sponsors that are paying for their activations, is this netting out, or can this actually be a loss leader because there's so many integrated values around it? Do you guys need to make money with this, or is there enough brand building for all involved that you can kind of break even or not worry about the numbers as much?
Well, that's a really great question, and I think that that's one of the things that we wrestle with too, which is, we are looking to expand, not just even on 29 Rooms, but like, what are the other ways that we want to take our brand and bring things to life? And where do different revenue streams, aside from just sponsorship, play a part in that? So ticket value and concessions or culinary experiences and merchandising, and that also feeds into like online merch too, that happens within it. I immediately, I know this isn't directly related to exactly what you asked, but I think back to a man that is a really good friend of mine years ago, and he educated me a lot about really good sponsorship and what a good sponsorship deal makes for like the sponsor to align to a project. And we were talking a little bit and he was saying, gosh, you must feel that I'm like some kind of, maybe people think of sponsors and the selling out and the brand alignment. I was like, I just never have that feeling. To me, it is a sponsor saying, I believe in this and I'm bringing this to life. It is like a gift. And it's no different to me than, say, a financial institution that will support a major exhibit at a museum that enables so many people to go and enjoy that and help keep some of the price down. And isn't there something to that than just, say, a ton of VIP parties that are very exclusive? So to me, that's where I feel like finding that balance with sponsorship and to continue to find this way of dialogue that sponsors shouldn't be an enemy, and they're not there to be our partners in this, and that, again, when you have quality partners there can be a lot of brand love, because I already think of all of the different, I can think of so many different brands that I love. And I want Refinery to be a brand I love, and to be a catalyst for that integration that doesn't feel heavy-handed. You know, nobody's coming in and saying, well, you must sign up for this. It can really still be choose your own adventure.
Do you allow for data capture there? Do you enable the brands to have their promo team with an iPad and tchotchkes, or are you guys like way cooler than that?
Well, I will always keep our coolness factor, try to humble it, because look, we don't do everything. We haven't always done everything right. It's organic and we're learning in real time. I can say though that one of the things that we did this year was we wrestled with this a lot, but we did bring in an app with beacon technology. And then what we did was we turned to our brand partners and, you know, we shared that data with them, and then always wanting to make it feel, again, organic. Sure, we're their audience that said, like, they have a certain choice on surveys and such that they can choose to or not to participate in. So we don't like to be heavy-handed. I will tell you this though, when we do our surveys and our comments, we actually read everything. We get into this big conference room and we're going through, we have an entire data insights team, and then our team, and then other members of, you know, the whole company actually works on this, and we really digest and go through it. So if one person is writing to us and saying, I really wanted more stuff to do, I wanted more interactions there, I don't want to just have selfies, we take that to heart. And we're taking all of that feedback. Now that's not to say we can't, like, we can't make everything free. We can't, like, there are costs to doing this. But when we're seeing multiple comments talking about things like interactions, programming, engagement, we're gonna double down on that.
Sure. And then talk to me, you have such a well-thought physical on-premise activation basis, right? Talk to me about how digital strategy ties into that. How are you working content into digital, and how much of what you're selling to these sponsors are long-tail, digitally distributed impressions versus what's on site?
So, wow, there's, I think at the heart too is the fact that Refinery also identifies as a big content producer. And we have several initiatives that we integrate in. So I think about what we're doing, like for example, body positivity just like pulled into my mind. And so this was something that started outside of 29 rooms, and then we found a way within one of our rooms to integrate with that, and then working with those particular collaborators, how does that then pull into more within the online video photo experience that is there. Then there's of course the whole social piece, because that's a huge part of what 29 Rooms became known for. And it still kills me, this whole like 1 in 2 Instagram users around the world are sharing 29 Rooms. It's almost insane to me. But we're looking to go even further with the content piece. So, you know, we're still, you know, looking at the ways that we want to plant in video integration in subtle ways, and also getting in video with our users that, you know, maybe is not the obvious. Then there's other show programming ways. I don't know if it's going to translate the same way when in our Dreamer's Den, where we actually have this amazing lounge singer who can improv a dream, and an attendee could write it down, they'll write down their dreams and she'll pull it out of a fishbowl and then live improv it there with the musician and sing back the dream. I don't know if that's necessarily gonna normally translate into the normal content that people are digesting, versus where we partnered with one of our brands, Aldo, and worked with them on some original video content around the Love Walk back in New York. And that's a way to bring an extension there beyond just the room on site.
You need a team of people in VR headsets all around the world scribing on their iPads their dream and digitally ship them off to you guys and perform for the world.
If you only knew what was happening right now.
Ooh, care to share? Care to share? Can you widen the kimono for the class here?
All I can just tell you is, you know, we're thinking of this in real time too, and it's like, so somebody in our video department is going to maybe turn to me like a month or two ago and being like, all right, what do I need to do to get some VR time in this space? And, you know, doesn't mean that there's going to be members of our team that are coming in from 11 at night until 6 in the morning on dark days, you know, getting the capture that they need, and then us looking to roll out some things at like later in the year at CES and South by Southwest. Like that's really exciting. But it's like where we want to go with it. It's like we're figuring out and evolving it and being creative with it. It's like our own creative Play-Doh, like right now, just sometimes it's really high-tech Play-Doh.
I like that. High-tech Play-Doh, write that down. Hashtag, there's something there. Maybe the 30th room, perhaps. Okay, so what about...
If only you knew about the 30th room. Have you been like checking out? Like, okay, when are you in New York next?
My God. Where's my assistant? I don't know these things.
All right, we'll talk after.
They just ship me around anymore. I don't know. Can you tell me, have you ever gotten a brand that showed across your desk and you just say, holy hell, how am I going to make this amazing? And then what do you do in the more tricky cases to pull something together? Or if you have maybe on the other side a less sophisticated client, how do you bring up the bottom? You know?
Well, I think that I'll say there's been sort of two things that become our speed bumps. So one is that sometimes people come in and they're just like, we need to use this piece of tech. Like, so they might mention some, you know, cool hot thing that's out there. And, you know, we're not opposed at all to working with, you know, any piece of technology. I think more though what we're looking at is that the tech itself isn't necessarily what drives what is cool. It has to be so that the tech disappears to actually go into whatever makes that emotional connection. So we may go through the process and then come back to you and say, this is where we're going to add in some 3D mapping and video projection, or this is where we're going to add in some VR. But I wouldn't necessarily say we lead to that. So we're always trying to broaden up the discussion so that we're not just immediately saying, go to this piece of technology. And then the other thing, again, is I think it gets very, it does feel very risky when you have a team that's not internally at yours, and so many brands have really smart, dedicated people on their own side who, you know, are making sure that they represent their brand so well, they know their event attributes, and they want to put their best foot forward. And it can feel like a giant leap of faith to be like, you're not going to design it. You're going to tell us so much stuff. We're going to keep this dialogue going back and forth, but we're asking you to take that leap of faith with us. We will always have those places where it's like we're getting there and they're sharing in on reactions on the designs, on the renderings. We make special time for them on site before even the press comes in to say, what do you think? What do you feel? How, you know, how's this going? You know, so if we need to tweak the lights, if we need to judge something, we've got that time to do that. We want to be great partners, but I understand it takes hard time to take that leap.
Great, and then we have a few moments here. Do we have any questions out there? Anybody wonder some shit? Okay, yes?
What's been the biggest challenge that you didn't foresee?
Well,
question, maybe? That question?
Well, so once again, you know, we've been knowing that we've wanted to really play in the world of merchandise. That the brand love around 29 Rooms is, we're seeing a lot of that love, and we were like, yeah, how do you wear that magic? And you know, we do identify a bit as like being a little bit fashion focused in there, but at the same time, you know, people do have a certain amount of pride. So it's for us to trying to find the balance. So I'd say a learning lesson that we've gotten right now, and it's been a challenge of like, we feel like we've designed some really great products. We've worked with somebody who specializes in that, but we also work with our internal design. The flip side of it is going, well, do we take some of those pieces that we're seeing on site, like our brand ambassadors, we actually paint splatter all of their uniforms. So we do it ourselves. It's not even like we went out and here's a print and we sourced that out to some company to make, you know, I need 200 shirts all with this pattern. They're custom paint splattered. We have these cool overalls that look so cute right now. And we're getting a ton of people going up to the BAs and being like, where can I get those overalls? So it makes us kind of wonder, like, you know what, maybe we're not gonna be traditional merch. Maybe we're gonna be the kind of place where there's gonna be in our store and we're gonna have customization, and we're gonna find a way to make it our own. And maybe it won't even just be an embroidery machine that's there that can put your name on it. I don't know, maybe we're gonna have a bunch of colors there and we're gonna let you paint splatter it and you be your own Jackson Pollock. I don't know, but I think we're more interested in keeping this sort of creative cycle in the hands of the users too, because that's what it seems like they're jonesing for, and we didn't know. And we want to be successful at merch.
Who'd have thought, right? So I just want to thank you today for your time. I think I speak on behalf of the room. We're all excited to see where you personally and Refinery29 move into the future. So thank you again for your time. How about a round of applause for our esteemed guests?
Thank you, Dustin. Thank you so much. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, guys.